Hi everybody, I hope you are all doing well. It is absolutely freezing here in the south of England, so much so that I have moved to the different end of the sofa so I can be by my radiator as close as possible, and I've had to put on my hoodie. So yeah, I look different, I'm in a different position than usual, but you know, go with it. So you've probably been seeing me every other day through my Advent calendar, bookish advent calendar reveals so far, which has been so much fun. But it has been a couple of weeks since my last review, and I have been working as usual and such. But I had a really fabulous day. Well, really fabulous couple of days. Firstly, on Thursday, I had our office Christmas do, which is the first one we've been able to have in it'd been nearly 3 years because of COVID. You know, the various restrictions and lockdowns and people just not being available, or you know, feeling concerned and everything about COVID and that, to get together. And so we actually had an in-office thing, and we went out for a really great lunch and ended up spending about 3 hours in a restaurant, having a great time. So yeah, I did pay more than I was meant to, I think, but you know, I didn't realize until after I paid and left the restaurant, so it was too late now, can't do anything about it. But you know, I actually think it could have been because of a service charge or something, I don't know, but either way, it was a good day. And then the following day, Friday, I had been working on a big project in my work, on to do with softwares that I have never used before, kind of like chucking me in at the deep end and getting this stuff sorted. And the project has finally finished, so I've only got one more week of work and then I'm done for Christmas, because I wanted to make sure it was done before Christmas, and I've done it with a week to spare. So yay. So it's been a really good week. But yeah, and I'm having a get together with my family today, before Christmas, and to hand over presents, except because of the Royal Mail strikes, one of them hasn't arrived, unfortunately, so hopefully I can get that present to them in this remaining build up to Christmas. So yeah, but we're having a family lunch today, which would be really nice at my mum and dad's, so I'm really looking forward to that. But anyway, let's talk about the book I've been reading for the past 2 weeks, which is Margaret Mitchell's Gone with the Wind. This is a story that I have loved since I was a child. I still remain to love, thanks because of the film from the 1930s, and but I'd never read the book until now, so I'm here to talk about it. So my love affair with Gone with the Wind began because of my grandparents. And when my grandparents lived up in the north, they've both sadly passed now, and me, my sister, mum and dad lived down in the south. Quite weird, you know, talking about, but I'm talking about England, obviously not America, because obviously the north-south conflict divide that covers in this book. And so whenever my mum and dad when me and my sister were a little older and mum and dad went off to have like a holiday or something, we would stay at our grandparents' house. And our grandparents had this thing where we were only allowed to watch 2 things from their videos collection, and that was Seven Brides, Seven Brothers and Gone with the Wind. And they had this thing where we would go to bed normal time, but they would go to bed like gone midnight, early hours of the morning. So by the time me and my sister woke up, they wouldn't get up until hours later. So our routine every day was to get up, go make ourselves a drink, go into the living room, and then put on alternate days Seven by Seven Brothers and then Gone with the Wind. And we could watch Gone with the Wind is nearly 4 hours, and we could nearly watch all of it before they woke up. It was just like, you know, crazy. So yeah, that was our routine, that was what we did. And so those 2 films have got a very special place in my heart, but I've never gotten around to reading the book, and now I have. So in case you don't know what Gone with the Wind is about, it follows she begins a girl, because she's 16 at the beginning and she's 28 at the end, called Scarlett O'Hara. And Scarlett lives in Georgia, one of the southern states in America, and it starts in 1861. And she's very much, she's quite a spoiled girl, you know, I can't deny that, but she's lived very much in tradition and wealth and you know, she has certain comforts in life, and but most of all, she is strong-minded, she's resourceful, she will do whatever she wants to do to get what she wants, and she is in love with a man called Ashley Wilkes. And one day at a party at Ashley's family home, 12 Oaks, war breaks out, and she finds herself in a situation of, she wants the man that she wants, but he doesn't want her. And it goes through the whole of the Civil War, following Scarlett and all the things that she gets up to, and really shows the Civil War from the Southern perspective. Obviously, it was a fight between the northern states and the southern states of America over the span of 4 years, and then it goes on much after that. As I said, Scarlett is 16 when war breaks out, and the war lasted 4 years, and she is 28 at the end of the book. So it covers 12 years, the book. So yeah, that is the gist of Gone with the Wind. Now this cover is the film cover, as you can see, because it's on the cover of the film Blu-ray. And this is Rhett Butler, a man who comes into her life, who she meets at the 12 Oaks party as well, who becomes this kind of constant entity in her life. And it's also to do with her relationship with him. So it's her relationship with Ashley, with Rhett, and all these other characters that come into her life and such. Now let's get the elephant in the room out of the way. Gone with the Wind, along with other books, have been criticised because of the fact that it uses language which now is not appropriate, which people can find very offensive, and there are other elements of this book which also I can completely understand that people would have issue with reading, including, I'm not going to say specifics, obviously spoilers, but including things to do with the KKK and other really dark things that happened in this period of history. Totally understand that. To be honest, and I'm going to be totally honest here, the language in this book I have read far worse in various other books, in a far worse tone, but there are things in this that are completely shocking. I'm not going to deny that. And yes, obviously, use of such language, I can understand people having issue. But the prospect of somebody saying that a book should be censored, to me, that irks me. That it is a book of its time. It was written in the 1930s about people from the southern states of America at the time of the Civil War, who were on the side of pro-slavery. So there are going to be things that are going to be said in this book, naturally. Obviously, there is also the argument that it's of its time, therefore it is okay. I'm not saying it's okay. What I'm saying is that you can't edit the past. You can learn from it, and this is kind of like what happened. I noticed with the Black Lives Matter movement. Black Lives Matter movement, so important. What people stood up for, and still continue to stand up for, so important. The things that I was surprised at was companies who were going, right, we're going to hide any reference, any links that there is to any bad things like slavery and stuff like that. We're going to shove it away. We're going to lock it away. We're just not going to acknowledge it. No, you can't do that. I totally respect companies like the National Trust, who have put loads of information up to their properties saying, yes, this property has links to slavery. This is how that link to slavery happened, and are educating people who come to those properties to learn the full history. In order for us to take a step forward, we have to look back, we have to learn from those lessons. So locking them away and not acknowledging them is just wrong. It's wrong to me. So thus saying books like Gone with the Wind and other books like Huckleberry Finn and such, written at the time that they were written, should be should be censored, and all that stuff should be locked away. No, we should learn from it, and it is entirely your choice to read that book or not. So yeah, the argument there of censoring old books, to me, I can't go with that. It is there. If you want to read it, read it. If you don't want to read it, don't read it. It's your choice. It's like when the whole ink black heart thing happened, and I said in my review, and I didn't make this very clear, I totally understand that, where I was like, oh, for God's sake, can we stop having this screaming? And what I meant by that was that I hate being screamed at, being told what I should and should not read. I am a grown adult. I will decide what I read. If you don't want to read that, that's your choice. If I want to read that, that's my choice. Stop screaming at me what I should and shouldn't read. Let me make the choice. So yeah, so that's how I feel on that matter. Anyway, I've been rambling. Sorry about that. So yeah, there is language in this book, and there are events in this book that people could have real problems with reading. I totally understand that. I, frankly, in other books, have read worse, but there were things that took me a bit of time to process. I will say that. And that's me having known the story for so many decades, because I have loved the film since I was little, and I was shook. So yeah, it's one of those books where I totally get if people have to put this down for a while and just step away from it. But I'm not saying that people shouldn't give it a go whatsoever. But I would flag that there could be some things in this book that could make them uncomfortable. So when it comes to the actual writing itself, Margaret Mitchell very, very sadly only wrote Gone with the Wind. And it is so sad that is the case, because it would have been so interesting if she wrote something else as well, and what that would be. And because I found her writing really great. Sometimes I felt like, oh, if only she pushed it slightly a bit more there and give more emphasis on that. But this book is spanning 12 years. It has tons of characters, and it's nearly 1,000 pages long. She had a lot of stuff to cram in, and I myself have I've been saying to my sister and our bestie Sarah that because I grew up in the UK, and I don't know a lot about the American Civil War. I know the gist of it, but I couldn't give you details. And I just watched a YouTube channel called Oversimplified, and they have 2 videos about the history of the Civil War. And my God, those 4 years are insane. The amount of stuff that happened in those 4 years. And that's just the first 4 years of this book. This is 12 years. So I completely understand more now why Margaret's like, yeah, I can't spend a lot of time on that. I've got to go over here and carry on the story, But she's a very interesting writer. She gets on with what she needs to say. She just goes with the flow. She does what she needs to. It flows very much like the film does. There you can see the particular currents, and the only time that she actually spends a good chunk of time covering something for quite a bit is when there is a calmness going on. there's going to be a build up to something new, but it's in like the later end of the book when there is a bit of a stillness in the time. And that's not, you know, I'm not saying there has to be conflict and craziness and war in every 5 seconds, but it is that naturally in life that you have periods of time where there is a peace and a quietness to it, and that's when she will take the time to have established something properly, you know, foundationally, and then it will lead up to something nearer the end of or coming up into the next section of the book. So yeah, she knows how to get the balance right, I feel. And also, she taught me things. So, for example, because in Gone with the Wind, the film, they never really emphasize the amount of time that is passed. This is going to sound completely and utterly stupid, I know. I didn't realise that the Civil War was 4 years. Didn't realise it, because it's like the way in which it's depicted, it's like, yeah, you see time sort of pass, but once you hit certain dates of the Civil War, there's like certain battles because of characters being involved in them and such, or coming home for Christmas on a certain year because there's some leave that's come up and so characters able to return home for Christmas. You don't get any dates from that point onwards. So honestly, like when the war ends, you don't know what the year is. it just doesn't get mentioned. So I never really thought about how long the Civil War was until I've read this book, and I'm like, oh my god, it was 4 years. 4 years. And as I said, I watched that oversimplified, and I've seen the history of the 4 years, and that is crazy amount of stuff that happened in those 4 years. And then obviously rolling afterwards for the following 8 years. It's just crazy. And I learned things also, such as I've already mentioned, like the KKK and such, that obviously I knew of them and what they stand for, you know, but to do with links to history after the Civil War and such. Didn't know any of that. I do now. Even things like links, spies and such between the two armies and such, and doing, there's character Rhett Butler doing what he can, selling things in order to make money and make sure he's comfortable and that through the war and such. It's just so interesting, the boundary lines between what is good and right and what you do to survive. And Scarlett herself kind of crosses those lines constantly. And I want to read you a bit. I haven't done a reading for ages on this channel, I know, because I keep talking on, and then I'm like, oh, it's been forever, I better stop this video. So this is Scarlett after she has travelled from Atlanta, Georgia, back to her home, which is only about 15 miles, but it's taken days. She's got it's her Melanie, who's just recently had a baby and she's very ill, the newborn baby, Prissy, who is a slave, and another child. I'm not going to say who, because spoilers and all that lot. And they have travelled from Atlanta through war-torn lands full of dead bodies, no food, no water, nothing, just trying to get to safety, and such as Sherman from the north is ravaged through the state, and his armies are like stolen, killed, set fire to things, destroyed everything possible through the state as he has passed through. And yeah, so this is her going, she's gotten home and there's nothing left, and this just shows you the spirit of Scarlett. So she walked back across the yard and took the path down towards the silent row of whitewashed cabins in the quarters, calling hello as she went, but no voice answered her. Not even a dog barked. Evidently, the Wilkes' slaves had taken flight or followed the Yankees. She knew every slave had his own garden patch, and as she reached the quarters, she hoped that these little patches had been spared. Her search was rewarded, but she was too tired even to feel pleasure at the sight of turnips and cabbages, wilted for want of yellowing but edible. She sat down in the furrows and dug into the earth with hands that shook, filling her basket slowly. There would be a good meal at Tara tonight, in spite of the lack of side meat to boil it with vegetables. Perhaps some of the bacon grease Dilsey had used for illumination could be used for seasoning. She must remember to tell Dilsey to use pine knots and save the grease for cooking. Close to the back step of one cabin, she found a short row of radishes, and hunger assaulted her suddenly. A spicy, sharp-tasting radish was exactly what her stomach craved. Hardly waiting to rub the dirt off on her skirt, she bit off half and swallowed it hastily. It was old and coarse and so peppery that tears started in her eyes. No sooner had a lump gone down than her every outraged stomach revolted, and she lay in the soft dirt and vomited tiredly. The faint smell which crept from the cabins increased her nausea, and without strength to combat it, she kept on retching miserably, while the cabin and the trees revolved swiftly around her. After a long time, she lay weakly on her face, the earth as soft and comfortable as a feather pillow, and her mind wandered feebly here and there. She, Scarlett O'Hara, was lying behind a cabin in the midst of ruins, too sick and too weak to move, and no one in the world knew or cared. No one would care if they did know, for everyone had too many troubles of their own to worry about her. And all this was happening to her, Scarlett O'Hara, who had never raised her hand even to pick up her discarded stockings from the floor or to tie the laces of her slippers, Scarlett, whose little headaches and tempers had been coddled and catered for all her life. As she lay prostrate, too weak to fight off memories and worries, they rushed at her, circled about her like buzzards, waiting for a death. No longer had she the strength to say, "I'll think of Mother and Pa and Ashley and all the ruins later." Yes, later, when I can stand it. She could not stand it now, but she was thinking of them whether she willed it or not. The thoughts circled and swooped above her, dived down and drove tearing claws and sharp beaks into her mind. For a tireless time she lay still, her face in the dirt and the sun beating hotly upon her, remembering things and people who were dead, remembering a way of living that was gone forever, and looking upon the harsh vista of the dark future. When she arose at last, she saw again the black ruins of 12 Oaks. Her head was raised high, and something that was youth and beauty and potential tenderness had gone out of her face forever. What was past was past. Those who were dead were dead. The lazy luxury of the old days were gone, never to return. And as Scarlett settled the heavy basket across her arm, she had settled her own mind and her own life. There was no going back, and she was going forward. Throughout the South, for 50 years, there would be bitter-eyed women who looked backwards to dead times, to dead men, evoking memories that hurt and were futile, bearing poverty with bitter pride because they had those memories. But Scarlett would never look back. She gazed at the blackening stones, and for the last time she saw 12 Oaks rise before her eyes as it once stood, rich and proud, the symbol of a race and a way of living. Then she started down the road towards Tara, the heavy basket cutting into her flesh. Hunger gnawed at her empty stomach again, and she said out loud, "As God is my witness, the Yankees aren't going to lick me. I'm going to live through this, and when it's over, I am never going to be hungry again. No, nor any of my folks. If I have to steal or kill, as God is my witness, I will never be hungry again." Just the depth and the weight of everything that Margaret is able to convey through Scarlett is amazing. And what I love about Scarlett is that there is literally like nothing holding her back. You can feel that as the corsets and such get pulled, hinges her in, that she feels like constantly that she's going to burst out. And I'm not talking about her weight, I'm talking about her spirit. She has got such a bold determination, and she's so resourceful, and she will literally do anything to survive. She is an astonishing character, and the first word that probably comes to your mind when you think of Scarlett O'Hara is a bitch. But she is a badass bitch. I really love Scarlett. Yes, she has her faults. She has some serious faults. But she has such strength, such a core, that powerful core, that I can't help marvel her. She is astonishing. I love her. I love all the characters. Melanie is another character. Her complete polar opposite. But my God, the strength that Melanie has throughout the course of Gone with the Wind is one of the most extraordinary things I've come across, and I adore her. I've adored her since I was young, but now that I've read the book, I have a whole nother level of respect for her. She's stunning. She's absolutely amazing, and at the root of it, I mean, this is a book, as I said before, at least I think I said before, and if I haven't, I will say it now, that this is a fictional book of the American Civil War from the Southern side who lost. So it has so many things about it, from of obviously the losing side, but Scarlett would never allow herself to be considered a loser. She would do anything to fight to top. So it's kind of like she's the perfect protagonist for this story. And the fact that it ends when she's 28, and my God, which is only 28. So you think that she would be like an old maid at this point for all the stuff that she's gone through. But even like at the very end of the book, I'm not going to give the ending away, of course not, but her determination is the thing that ends the book, that she is gonna continue going forward. She's going to get what she wants in any way possible. And the last line, this isn't a spoiler at all, but the last line say, "Tomorrow after all is another day." That just slams me. It just every single time I see the film, and when I reread this book, what that means, what a single day can mean. A single day can change everything. And it was just these random days that happened that completely flipped her world upside down. But she was determined to still remain standing up, and she will remain standing up. And that's what I love about her. She may be a bitch, but she has got such strength, such a core that everybody wishes that they could have. And she is just amazing. I love Scarlett O'Hara. I think she's incredible. So the film, the 1939 film. This is the 70th anniversary Blu-ray, 2-disc Blu-ray that I've got. So the first disc with Scarlett here is the film, and the second disc is a load of special features and such. And I think there's a commentary on this as well. Yes, yeah, the commentary with an historian. Yes, because I've heard that before, but it was when I first got this set, which was years ago. So the film version stars Clark Gable as Rhett Butler and Vivien Leigh as Scarlett O'Hara. Is one of the most perfect films that has ever existed for me, because, as I said, this has lived in my heart, my soul, my everything since I was a kid. It is so well put together. It's just under 4 hours, which sounds insane, but it goes by so quickly. And to be honest, in order for a book of this weight and this magnitude to be able to be put on screen, you have to give it the time that it needs, and the film really does. It's only like when you, after that, as God is my witness, which is the end of the first half of the film before the intermission. It's only the second half of the film where they really swap stuff around, or they've taken stuff out from the book. So like there's various characters, like there is a character called Will, who I really like, who is introduced in the second half right after the Civil War has ended. And he's quite a nice character. I really like him, but in the film they took him out and they gave his lines, they sort of scatter his lines and his connection with Scarlett across multiple different people. And also there are various conversations, various things that happen that they just felt, we don't need that, we can do without that, and it works perfectly fine without those elements. So I have absolutely no problem with what the filmmakers decided to do with Gone with the Wind, with converting it into a film. They did very, very well with what they had, and there are full conversations that are directly lifted from the book and put onto the film, apart from like one or two lines that might change. Like, for example, there's a scene near the beginning of the film where Rhett and Scarlett talk for the first time, and apart from like one or two lines, it is word for word verbatim from the book to the film. So I was reading it and I was like doing their voices because I couldn't help, because I like to speak aloud from time to time. And I was reading aloud during that, and I was actually doing like Clark Gable's voice and Scarlett throughout it, because I know the script so well. I was actually saying the script in the way they acted it out loud. It was very weird, but that's me. And yeah, I so it is very, very well put together. And obviously, unless you don't know the history of this film, there was a lot that happened in the process of making this film. There were 4 directors in total. It went on for a very long time. There was a whole controversy that happened because Hattie McDaniel, who plays Mammy, she won an Oscar for her role, which she so rightly deserved, but at the time, the Academy would not allow black members who took part in films to sit with white members of films, so she had to sit off to the side on her own table, and there was no footage or taken of her apart from her speech, things like that. And it's like, that is really messed up. But obviously that was then, this is now. I am no way saying that's, like I said at the beginning of this video, I'm in no way saying that the past justifies. We learn from the past, we take the step forward to make sure that those things don't happen again. So yeah, I'm sure there's lots and lots. If you look on YouTube, online or whatever, you'll find loads and loads of information, videos and such about the history of the making of this film. But it is extraordinary. The cinematography, the score, oh my god, one of the best scores from the 1930s films. It's just, even to this day, it's just that it manages to capture the whole beauty of a time. I said the whole thing of the pre-Civil War is that Southern states, obviously it's the grand houses, it's the beautiful dresses, and then that got completely stripped away, and there is a somewhat beautiful seeing that imagery of that time, and it's sort of in a time capsule, and the score manages to capture that entirely in the most stunning structure. I cannot get over that score. It is beautiful. So definitely recommend the film Gone with the Wind, because obviously it's such a big saga. There hasn't really been any other adaptation. I mean, there was a terrible musical, but yeah, there hasn't really been anything else other than the 1939 film, but it is amazing. And I love like Hattie McDaniels and Butterfly McQueen and Vivian Leigh and Clark Gable, and everybody involved with that film. They are all amazing. I love them so much. So yeah, that's all I can think of to say right now, and I better stop because I have to be ready to be picked up by my dad in like 15 minutes. So I hope you enjoyed this review. Have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. Leave me a comment in the comments box below. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, entirely to your lady decide. I'll be back with my thoughts of my next read, which I have just realised I have left on my coffee table over there, which is Gypsy, the autobiography. That's the word. I was going to say biography, then I was like, no, the other one, autobiography of Gypsy Rose Lee. And so yeah, I will let you know my thoughts on that as soon as I'm done. And of course, Monday I'll be back with the next Bookishly Advent book reveal. All right, guys, bye.